It's a Monday. That means we get to talk to Bill Krueger, Root Sports, brought to you by Rise Above Foundation. Native Youth RiseAbove.org is the website. We are inside the Puck Sports Studios, built by Limback Lumber. Family owned and serving the Northwest since 1930. A premier supplier of specialized lumber and moldings. Summer, we are in summer right now. So you got to build a new deck, new fence. In fact, we got to build a new fence right now. So I'm going to Limback Lumber to get some lumber to build ourselves a new fence. You can do the same thing as well. Contact them at 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbacklumber.com. Puck Sports Studios, built by Limback Lumber. All right, Bill, we missed you last week, but here we go. We're back with you to talk a little Mariners baseball, and we're in the All-Star break, and boy, they're stumbling into the break. They lost 3 out of 4 to one of the worst teams in baseball. And again, it was the offense that prevented them from winning any of these games.
The answer, they did stumble to the break. They did lose to a team that's not very good in the Angels, minus Mike Trout, of course, Ohtani. That is not a good baseball team. That's one of the worst Angels teams I've seen since I got into professional baseball in 1983. Yeah, they're not good. But in baseball, if you pitch the right guy, Randy Johnson pitches for the Bad News Bears. The Bad News Bears have a chance to win. So I think that's the thing when you look at Tyler Anderson and Jose Soriano. Both those guys were capable of winning games. No excuse for yesterday. I think we could dig a little deeper. I mean, clearly the team is sitting at the bottom of most offensive categories. They're underperforming offensively. They don't have to be a juggernaut, but they have to be a little bit better. They need to be incrementally better. And if they are, then this team's got a chance to be pretty good. But ifs and buts and candies and nuts, that's not what's happening right now.
What did you make of the decision that obviously on social media was just a huge topic? Logan Gilbert was cruising. He looked great. Remember the other day, the previous start, we thought that he was maybe going to get a complete game because he was kind of in a similar fashion, wasn't throwing a lot of pitches. I think as you're watching that game develop yesterday, you're thinking, oh, maybe he's got another chance to do it before the All-Star break. He exits after 87 pitches. And then, the whole thing with Stanek and then Voth, it all kind of falls apart. I understand all the reasons why they did it, because I get that he's thrown the most innings in baseball. But this is a guy just seems like he is built to be able to do it and pitch more than he did. Obviously, yesterday it backfired on them. What was your takeaway from pulling him after 7 innings?
Well, you know how I'm going to land on this one.
Yeah, that's why I kind of put it up on a team.
I'm going to land on the starting pitchers rolling. Why would we take him out? Abdul-Jabbar's got 50 points at the end of the third quarter, and now Michael Cage is the only one left that can guard him. And we're going to take and go for the 3-point shot, for the fourth quarter. None of it makes sense. You got Marshawn Lynch, and you're running out the clock. But no, we're just going to pass our way to the end of the game and hope we win.
Hey, Michael Cage was a pretty good player.
No, he was. That was bad analogy. Michael Cage was a good defender. But the point being is that, you've got the knife and you've gone ahead and brought in the matador. All the other pomp and circumstances are done. Now we're just going to skewer the bull and go home. I think that's what has to happen. The game should tell you what's going on. He's free and easy. He's dominating the competition. We're not talking about going to 125 pitches. In fact, we can nudge our way along, but the Mariners don't like that. They want it neat and tidy with a bow around it. We're going to script it, we're going to build it, and it's going to go just like this, and it's just going to go so perfectly, wonderfully scripted. I've got my day timer out, and I've got it all planned out. It doesn't always work that way in sports. Sometimes you have to say to yourself, well, he's free and easy. He's had a stressless game. He's sticking it to him. And you know what? We have the advantage of not having to say no to the bullpen, because we can go ahead and just kind of waltz along. Maybe he has a little bit of a harder 8th inning, and it's easy for us to take him out after 8, and now you've got Munoz. The way I look at rankings of this team, or any team, I'm going to take the first 3 starters as my 3 best pitchers. And then the next pitcher on that list is who? Andres Munoz. It's not the field bet at the craps table on the rest of the bullpen. It's Andres Munoz. I want to go from, if I have my way, I want to go Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert, Munoz. And if I could do that every game, Yahtzee. So, yes, do we want him to throw a complete game? Of course, I want complete games because that's the world I come from. Can Logan Gilbert throw a complete game in that particular game that we're looking at? Possibly. Because of pitch count, we don't want him to go getting into the 115s probably. Although I think these guys like Kirby and Gilbert and Castillo, they're not. You can't judge everybody at the same place as far as what pitch count means to their bodies. We're talking about guys that are at the peak of their physical prowess. We're not talking about Fernandez Valenzuela, who back in the early 80s was throwing 135 to 140 pitches a game, and there's no wonder his career didn't go any longer because they just buried him and throw dirt on top of him. They just abused him, right? We're not talking about that. So, yes, was it a mistake to take him out? Yes, it was. But they have a way of looking at pitch count. And listen, I believe they have done the research. They have thought a lot about what the number is around that number, 90-ish or so. That means you're going to have longer-term success. And they've probably back-tested that pretty heavily across a large amount of data. But that doesn't mean that it sits well with me as I perceive the game. Ryan Stanek's injury, unpredictable. Has Ryan Stanek been bulletproof? No, I'll tell you what a heck of a find he's been. When Brash went down and we didn't have anybody like him, he's done a great job this first half, but not bulletproof, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they couldn't have prepared, what was going to happen to him yesterday. I mean, he throws 4 pitches and he's got to exit after, a back spasm, and then, Voth comes in and he just had a rough series. I was just quickly looking at Gilbert's stats. I think the most amount of pitches he's thrown this year is 101. And I went back to last year, and I think 105 is about the most. If I just quickly looked at it, 105 is the most he's thrown last year. And if I took it back to 2022, I bet you that he didn't even eclipse that. I mean, it is 109. He had 109 back a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, no one's asking for 135 pitches. I mean, we get that. But it seems like they could have squeezed out one more inning, out of him. And he's got the bottom of the order that he's about to face. So, and it's not like he's facing the 27 Yankees, right? I mean, that's not a good lineup. And it's just odd. And I looked it up this year, Bill. He's had 6 games this year, 6 games in which he has given up 1 earned run or less. And he has 6 times he's either no decision or has lost that game. I mean, that's remarkable.
Yeah, they stage a game. The strength of this team is starting pitching, and we're getting a participation award. That's the quality start. That's the participation ribbon of today's
sure.
baseball. They should have one that goes for 7 innings. I don't know what you want to call it. Winnable start. That's my new stat.
Yeah.
I think 1 more inning makes a ton of difference on average. And the quality start came along long before we got into this place where 5 innings was good enough, and load the bullpen and lawn chairs in the bullpen, and everybody throws 100, and it's all neat and tidy, and we throw all these rocket launchers into the game after 5 innings. The quality start came along before that. Well, to me, you're telling yourself, okay, my strength of my team is my starting pitching, but I'm going to win the game between the 7th and the 9th. And my starting pitcher is not going to have a hand in that. To me, that's flawed.
Yeah.
That's flawed thinking. That doesn't mean, again, we're talking about taking guys further than they should go. He's going to get extra time off over the All-Star break. He's got extra days. He's at the top of his physical prowess right now. I'm watching the game. It's free and easy. He's taking names. Whenever you take somebody and you pull the plug on them, when they're dominating somebody, what does the other team do? They go, wow,
exactly. First thing
he's out of the game, and anybody that comes along after that's going to look like slow pitch softball.
First thing I thought of, Bill. First thing I thought of when they took him out is that
we can't do that because we're hunchy.
They're so relieved.
We're thinking from the seat of our pants. We're hunchy. We're hunchy. We're not. Come on.
Yeah.
What about the lineup the Mariners are running out there every day? It feels awfully hunchy to me. It doesn't feel analytic driven. Guys are moving all over the dance floor on that.
Right.
For what reason? I mean, you can't tell me, well, we put a lot of thought into it. We went in reams and reams of data to determine why Mitch Garver hits number 2 or whatever, or Polanco hits 5 yesterday or whatever. I mean, it feels a little like hot. Like, this is what I feel like will help us today. Because right now, we've got Hope right now, our lineup, right? We got Raleigh and Rodriguez and Hope. And we don't have to be great. And that's, anyways, yeah. I don't understand Logan Gilbert out after 7. I didn't really even understand Kirby last night, but that they were losing that game, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless,
well, it's the way they do it. I mean, it's they've been. Here's the thing: it's that it bothers us every time they do it. They have been consistent doing it all year long.
Yeah,
they've been consistent doing it the last few years, so it's just who they are, and that appears to be their number. Those guys get close to 100, it's over. Yeah, remember how much we were critical? It's so funny to think about it. Remember how critical everybody was with Eric Bedard?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? You remember that? Like, he'd get to 100 pitches and be like, okay, I'm done. I'm finished. And we killed Eric Bedard. And that wasn't even that long ago, it felt like. You know what? So I guess my conclusion is this, Bill, is Eric Bedard was ahead of his time.
He was. His game, he was ahead of his time. I always felt when I watched Eric Bedard pitch, I mean, he had incredible breaking ball.
Yeah, he did.
And he could throw it any place in the count, and he had really, really good stuff. But he was like, he was the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion all wrapped up into one, trying to go to the Wizard. He wanted all 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
And yet today's day, he's an ace. I mean, when I came up in baseball, we had a term called 5 and fly, and 5 and fly was not that is not an admirable term to be talked about. When you're a starter and you're a 5 and fly guy, that tells you a lot about you don't have the gumption for the game. That you're just looking for a way out. You just want to get a couple times through and have your numbers look good and get to the shower and all's great.
Yeah.
And I'm picking on somebody, which I don't mean to do because I think he's a great guy and he's a very good pitcher. His name is Storm Davis. And Storm Davis was your poster child for 5 and fly. In fact, I think he won 19 or 20 games one year in the late 80s for the Oakland A's. And today, 5 and fly is the norm. Mm. It's the norm. To me, we do talk about innings. We do give credit for the fact that innings matter, that starting pitchers' innings matter. But I think we're still not taking the most advantage. You're taking Secretariat and you're teaching him to run the 3/4 of a mile instead of teaching him to run the mile and a quarter so he can be the greatest horse that ever lived.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. The first half offensive numbers, I looked at it this morning, and it's just, they're exactly where you thought or where you think that they would be in terms of overall. They're 30th in average. They're dead last in average. They're 28th in OPS. They're 28th in slugging. They're number 1, however you want to look at it, number 1 or 30th in strikeouts. The most strikeouts, they got over 1,000 at the break, 1,013. And they are 27th in runs scored. I mean, it's almost, you have to laugh. It's comical that they're in first place with those numbers.
Baseball is, a lot of attention has been paid to this sort of way of playing the game, this sort of walk, strikeout, homer, slug. If we can slug, then we'll put up with strikeouts. But you got to have a couple things. You got to slug and you got to walk.
Mm-hmm.
This club doesn't really slug, and this club doesn't walk enough. So that doesn't work. I think that we're starting to see teams, a couple things that I think have started to change. We're seeing teams that are more willing to put the ball in play and are having more success with that style of play, and you're seeing teams with a ton of left-hand hitting. The rover is gone. We're still shifting, but the rover is gone. And so left-hand hitting has become more prominent. And so, we've gotten away with not having left-handed pitching. Our pitching is so good, it just says we don't care. Mm-hmm. But you saw on the road trip how they had struggles. When they had to load the box left-handed hitting, it tested our pitching. So, I think there. Hopefully you start to see this pendulum swing a little bit more toward putting the ball in play, type of style of play, the stolen base is a big part of the game. Seeing player movement on the bases, seeing the ball put in play, I think it's good for the game. And we've discussed some of the reasons why it's been so difficult. The shift's been part of it. Certainly the maturation and the development of power pitching, but more than anything else is the strike zone. But we don't want to talk about that again because that's just another visit that we don't need to go through again.
But there's not enough that they can do at the deadline to just vastly improve this offense, right? It's going to have to start with the guys that are on the team. It's JP, it's Cal, it's Julio, and then if you add a player to supplement that, are you encouraged by the early returns in July from Julio?
I think anytime you're starting to see, when you're a great player and you start to see things happen like that, it has to breed confidence. It has to remind him of how good he can be, that it's starting to happen for him. What's troubling is in between those games are games where he doesn't look very good at all. The game in San Diego after the 4-hit game, he gets punched out 4 times. And there's a reoccurring theme in the games where he struggles. And those are pitchers that understand that you can pitch off the plate with Julio and he's going to swing along with you. And he obviously preyed upon a couple of games where he preyed upon some very young pitching that gave him a lot of balls to hit. They gave the team a lot of balls to hit. I have to remain more encouraged than less, because the outcomes have been so much better over the past 2 weeks. And so I think Julio, if you could just take a step forward and think in terms of saying to yourself, okay, I need to continue to think about the balls that I want to hit and try to hit a good pitch. Get a good pitch to hit. Ted Williams, that was his biggest mantra in science of hitting, was get a good ball to hit. And how do you do that? Well, some of it is that his swing is long and he has to make earlier swing decisions. He's very aggressive. And I think if he would just say to himself, okay, I'm going to look for my ball early in the count. I'm going to look middle of the plate away, and I'm going to be able to handle all the pitches that I can handle, and I'm just not going to swing at the ball in. And if he does that, I think a lot of good things would happen for him. But he swings, 4 inches off the plate in and 4 inches off the plate away. That you got to be pretty doggone good to do that. There's Manny Sanguillen, there's Vladimir Guerrero, and there's everybody else that can't do it. So I'm getting to the answer. The answer is I'm encouraged, Jason, by his most recent production, and he's a dynamic player. And if he starts to believe in it, boy, we've seen what can happen. He can take off like a wildfire.
Yeah, and it just mirrors what he's done in his career. It's just July and August are always his 2 strongest months, and he's off to just a great start. He's hitting over 450, and it just all the signs are leading us to believe that this is going to be a huge 2-month push for him, which, again, whatever they add at the deadline, it's a position player, which I would assume they're going to. It's going to enhance the lineup and make it a little bit longer, but it is really dependent on him. If he can get going and start, as they always say, start playing to the back of the baseball card. Yeah. They'll score enough runs with their pitching to be okay. A rumor, I don't know how much you follow this guy or give me a thought or two on it. There was Bob Nightingale of USA Today has noted that the Mariners appear to be the leading candidate to acquire Jazz Chisholm. What do you think of Jazz Chisholm?
Athletic, can run. He's got a lot of tools, but doesn't get on base a whole lot, and so that's a little troublesome. He would when you start thinking about where can you plug a player in on our team. I mean, clearly second base speaks loudly. Second and third are really the 2 places you could put somebody, and then sort of rejigger it from there. But a plus runner, a guy with some pop. He's hit over 10 home runs, I believe. He's hitting like 250, I think, but not on base a whole lot. So it makes the club incrementally better. But I don't know that it's a difference maker. It's like one move that helps you. I mean, Polanco had a decent road trip. He put some balls in play. But clearly you go get him and Polanco goes away. I don't see how you could keep Polanco if you get Chisholm. So that's kind of how that rolls. And they don't owe Polanco after this year. And Polanco's been a great player. He just doesn't. He hadn't been able to get it going, and whether that's Father Time, or mechanics, or pressing, or whatever it's been, and he has shown a little bit of life this past road trip. That's an interesting call where they sit on Polanco. Because they don't really have another option. Bliss kind of shows you that he just is he needs more season. He needs to play a little bit more. He needs to play. He just needs to play. Does that determine whether or not he can be an everyday second baseman? And you get beyond that, and the club just doesn't. Dylan Moore's more suited for utility, and so you're really kind of you're stuck with Polanco in hopes that he gets better. Not a huge fan of Chisholm, but not saying that it wouldn't be something that helps you. Probably wouldn't cost you a whole lot to get him.
Yeah, see, I don't know about that. That's what I'd want. I'd like to know.
Player, so that's hard to say where Miami would land on that.
Yeah, I'm the two top guys in their system. I don't know if I'm giving up two of those top guys.
I don't think so either.
Because that's a lot for a guy that really, honestly, I think the perception with him, he's on the cover of MLB The Show last year, 2023. He's charismatic and he has all the tools to be a top 5 player in the game, but he's never put up any numbers to suggest he can be a top 5 player in the game. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's only played 124 games as a season high. I guess the thing that would worry me about him is you hear people talk about him down there, and he is a fan favorite. He plays the game, with a flair and all of that. But, he had a run-in with Miguel Rojas. He did, when he was a younger player and the veterans were trying to put him in his place, and he didn't like that. And so he kind of threw them under the bus and was known not as a great teammate. And then had 2 years ago in 2022, he was benched or not put in the lineup. And then he was critical of his manager, Don Mattingly, on social media. Stuff like that, it's, I don't know. You got to be careful what you add inside a clubhouse. I mean, he is obviously an upgraded second base where he would play, but how much of an upgrade would it be, and how much is it going to cost you? And I think Miami would ask for way too much, and I wouldn't want Seattle, whether it's Young or Emerson or Harry Ford. I don't know if I'm parting ways with those guys.
Yeah, I think they have depth in the middle infield, so that does make some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Chisholm, they kind of see him as it's the kind of guy Mariners love. He's not really a rental. He's controllable. They think he's got more upside than he's showing. Does one bad apple spoil the whole bunch? Well, some people think it will for sure, and others may not. That you have a lot of core leadership, and you have a lot of you just have a lot of good integral pieces to this team that you think that he kind of comes along, realizes the opportunity that's in front of him. Doesn't mean that he's gonna lose his swag, because we've got Julio, we got some swag in our team. So he's not gonna be hamstrung by that. It's just going to be understanding the opportunity that's in front of him, an organization that sees him as something that could be a real important piece moving forward. So you take all that into account, then that it starts to make some sense. But that's certainly not the only move the club needs to make.
Right.
They need another bat for sure. They probably need a little help in the bullpen. Stanik's injuries a little troubling. Gregory Santos at this point doesn't seem to be able to pitch very often. Maybe that's just by design. They need a little help there too. So I think they're going to keep waltzing along, looking for what fits as they get closer to the deadline, and who might be available that can help them. I think you have to look at teams. I mean, Castillo was a perfect storm, right? The Reds were capitulating financially. You got to keep that in mind. Teams that are giving up and have financial reasons to give up. The Reds, probably Miami, good reason. Chicago, they look like they're capitulating, right? So that doesn't make Toronto a real good target when they're printing money up there.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about what might be with a Vladimir Guerrero, when you say to yourself, well, they can just pay him. They can just keep playing this game. They have a lot of money. So why would they change course? They probably won't. So you start looking around at some of those bats that are floating around that, you just have to think about the Polar Bear and the J.D. Martinez's and Justin Turners, and I can waltz down the list of guys that maybe Miami. You got Josh Bell there. That's something to think about. I don't know if you're in love with Josh Bell, but I could see a package of. I'm just saying, not saying this is what I'm going to do, Jason.
Okay.
But I could see, and I need to think about it a little bit more and look at it a little more carefully. Josh Bell, Chisholm, and AJ Puck.
Okay. All right.
AJ Puck has not had a good year, but I watched him when he pitched against the Mariners. I saw him a little bit.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Left-handed, power. We need left-handed pitching, by the way.
Yeah.
Squire's coming back, but it's like, is he coming back? And you know what? We're all right-handed. You want to play against Baltimore? You want to play against, who's ever in the playoffs at Baltimore and Boston or Minnesota? We could go down the list of teams that got a lot of left-hand hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, we're not going to find it in the rotation, are we? Probably not.
Well, and a team that you're going to compete with, I mean, you're going to face them 2 more times in the second half. I mean, you've got a Yordan Alvarez problem, so you got to deal with him. And so hopefully, it sounds like Spire will be back for that series there against.
And I like him. I like him. It's not like I don't. I'm just saying they need more.
Right. All right, you enjoy yourself today on this Monday. I know you're going to go play a little golf. Go hit them straight. Have fun on the golf course, and we'll talk to you next week there, Bill Krueger.
All righty, Jason. Thanks so much. You have a good one.
You as well. Bill Krueger brought to you by Rise Above Foundation. Every Monday inside the Puck Sports Studios built by Limback Lumber. Every Monday, catch it on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And, of course, at Puck Sports and pucksports.com.